The sky above Manhattan erupted in a kaleidoscope of light as the Maltherian fleet materialized in Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Eleanor Chen stood frozen at her office window, coffee forgotten in her hand as the physics-defying spectacle unfolded. Sleek crystalline ships, each precisely the same dimensions, arranged themselves in perfect geometric formations that seemed to defy natural movement patterns. "My God," whispered her research assistant, Marcus, beside her. "They're actually here." All across the NYU campus, students and faculty poured from buildings, faces tilted skyward in collective awe. Some cheered, some prayed, but Eleanor felt a chill despite the warm spring air. The mathematical precision of the ship's movements struck her as oddly familiar, like an algorithm she'd once studied but couldn't quite place. The initial transmission arrived simultaneously on every communication device worldwide at exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Eleanor's phone vibrated in her pocket as the campus speakers crackled to life with the same message. "We are the Maltherian Collective. Your developmental assessment begins now." The voice was perfect in its pronunciation, devoid of accent or emotion. Something about its cadence triggered Eleanor's linguistic instincts, her specialty in communication patterns that had earned her tenure at 32. Within hours, the aliens established their temporary embassy in Geneva, commandeering the United Nations complex with technology that simply phased through existing security measures. The world watched as High Commander Xiltharian, a towering humanoid figure with crystalline skin that reflected light in impossible ways, met with Earth's hastily assembled United Defense Council. "Your species shows promising developmental trajectories," the commander stated, silver eyes scanning the assembled human leaders with clinical detachment. "However, your technological and societal optimization remains inefficient. We offer protectorate status under the Maltherian Collective for guided advancement." The terms he outlined were polite but unyielding. Earth would receive technological advancements deemed appropriate for their developmental stage in exchange for resource access and implementation of Maltherian organizational protocols. The deadline for acceptance: 3 Earth days. Eleanor attended the meeting as a last-minute linguistic consultant, observing from the back of the chamber. While diplomats debated responses and military leaders assessed threats, her attention fixed on subtle patterns in the alien speech. Micro-pauses between certain concepts, harmonic shifts when discussing human potential, almost imperceptible hesitations when addressing questions about Maltherian history. As the session adjourned for private deliberations, Eleanor approached General Maria Rivera, the council's military chair. The general's expression remained stoic, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her concern. "They're not telling us everything," Eleanor said quietly, showing the notation she'd been making. "Their language contains contradiction markers they don't realize humans can detect." Rivera studied her with sharp eyes. "Explain." "It's in their delivery patterns, slight inconsistencies when discussing their intentions versus their history. I studied communication evolution for 15 years, and there's something in their perfect speech that doesn't align with their claimed evolutionary path." The general checked that they weren't being observed before responding. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "I think they need something from us. Something they're not admitting. And it's not our resources. It's something about how we think." General Rivera's security clearance granted them access to a facility even most government officials didn't know existed. The elevator descended for nearly 2 minutes before opening into a cavernous underground complex beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Project Safeguard," Rivera explained as they walked through corridors humming with activity, established after the Roswell incident as a contingency for extraterrestrial contact. Eleanor followed, taking in the advanced technology and frantic energy permeating the space. "You've been preparing for this, hoping for friendly visitors, planning for hostile ones," Rivera replied. "Right now, we're somewhere in between." Within hours, Eleanor assembled her team in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the main research floor. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka arrived first, the quantum physicist whose wave-particle duality theories had been dismissed as fringe science until recently. Next came Aisha Okafor, her game theory algorithms having revolutionized military strategy simulations. The final member was Casey Wilson, a 19-year-old pattern recognition prodigy whose university application had been flagged by intelligence agencies for his unique cognitive abilities. The Maltherians communicate on multiple layers simultaneously, Eleanor explained, projecting intercepted transmissions across holographic displays. Surface level contains their explicit message, but there's something else underneath. Casey studied the data streams, eyes moving rapidly across the patterns. Their transmission structure is oddly rigid, he observed, like they've optimized it beyond natural language evolution. Dr. Tanaka nodded, efficiency taken to its logical extreme. For 18 hours straight, they analyzed every communication intercepted since the Maltherian arrival. Staff brought food and stimulants as needed, but nobody suggested rest. Outside their underground sanctuary, world leaders debated accepting protectorate status, with most believing resistance futile against such advanced technology. Casey suddenly stopped, removing his headphones. His eyes widened as he rewound the audio. "Listen to the carrier wave itself," he whispered, isolating a seemingly random sequence of pulses underlying all Maltherian communications. The team gathered around his workstation as he amplified the pattern. Dr. Tanaka's expression shifted from confusion to revelation. "It's a quantum encryption protocol," he said, fingers dancing across the interface. "But there's something unusual about its structure." Aisha leaned forward. "They're using perfect mathematical progression. No redundancies or irregularities." "Too perfect," Casey said, highlighting a recurring sequence. "Look at this pattern. It repeats exactly every 3.14 seconds. Pi," Eleanor realized. "They're using universal constants as anchors." Dr. Tanaka's excitement grew palpable. "The encryption is theoretically unbreakable through computational means, but their perfect logical structure creates a blind spot. They've optimized for maximum efficiency without accounting for pattern recognition that falls outside their parameters." On the main display, satellite footage showed Maltherian construction ships assembling massive orbital platforms around Earth. Their purpose remained unknown, but their methodical progress made the deadline clear: less than 72 hours until completion. "We need to understand exactly what they're hiding," Eleanor said, studying the platform's geometric precision, "and why beings with their technological advancement would need anything from Earth at all." Casey looked up from his analysis, eyes bright with realization. "Maybe it's not what we have," he suggested. "Maybe it's how we think." General Rivera entered with fresh intelligence reports. "Whatever you're onto, work faster. The Security Council votes tomorrow, and most members are leaning toward acceptance." Eleanor requested an emergency meeting with the Maltherian delegation, a boldness that surprised even General Rivera. "You're certain this is necessary?" Rivera asked as their transport approached the temporary Maltherian embassy in Geneva. The sleek crystalline structure had been fabricated overnight, its geometric perfection contrasting sharply with the surrounding architecture. "We need to confirm our theory," Eleanor replied, reviewing her notes one final time. "Their reaction will tell us more than their words." The Maltherian receptionist, an artificial construct of light and sound, processed their request with mechanical efficiency. Within minutes, they were escorted to a conference chamber where High Commander Gazil Therian awaited. His crystalline skin reflected blue light as he studied them, silver eyes unblinking. "Dr. Chen," he acknowledged, "your request specified urgent findings regarding our technological systems." Eleanor projected a holographic display of her team's preliminary analysis, deliberately incomplete yet impressive enough to warrant attention. "We've been studying your communication protocols," she explained. "The quantum encryption technique is particularly fascinating." The commander examined their work with clinical detachment. "Impressive pattern recognition for your developmental stage," he conceded, "but your species relies too heavily on intuitive leaps rather than perfect logical progression. This creates inefficiencies." His dismissal contained exactly the confirmation Eleanor sought. Back at the mountain facility, the team assembled to process this new information. Dr. Tanaka's simulations of Malthurian thought patterns filled the central display. Their neural networks evolved for perfect computational efficiency, he explained, highlighting intricate pathways that followed immaculate mathematical progressions. But they sacrificed something crucial along the way. Cognitive chaos, Casey suggested, studying the patterns. The noise that enables creative thinking. Aisha nodded, manipulating the simulation to compare with human neural mapping. They optimized logic to its absolute limit, eliminating anything resembling random connections or intuitive pathways, which means they can't comprehend approaches that don't follow logical optimization. Eleanor realized. Their perfect logic becomes their perfect weakness. As dawn broke across the mountain range above them, the team gathered around a central planning table. Satellite feeds showed Malthurian platforms now covering nearly 20% of Earth's orbital space, forming an increasingly connected geometric web. They need something from humanity, Eleanor stated. Something they lost during their evolution toward perfect efficiency. Creativity, Casey suggested. Intuition, added Dr. Tanaka. The ability to make logical leaps without intermediate steps, Aisha concluded. Eleanor nodded. And now we know how to exploit their blind spot. We need to create something no perfectly logical mind could ever anticipate. A message that contains its own contradiction. General Rivera studied the emerging plan with the careful consideration of someone who had spent a lifetime evaluating strategic risks. The stakes couldn't be higher. The Security Council votes in 12 hours to accept protectorate status, she said. Defense systems worldwide are already being deactivated as a show of good faith. Whatever you're planning, you have until then. Eleanor glanced at her team, seeing determination reflected in each face. Then we better get started on the most illogical, irrational, and thoroughly human message in history. And hope, Rivera added quietly, that we're right about them being wrong. The mountain facility transformed into a creative laboratory unlike any in scientific history. Engineers worked alongside artists. Philosophers collaborated with mathematicians, and cultural anthropologists debated with quantum physicists. At the center of this intellectual storm, Eleanor's core team directed their collective efforts toward a single goal: cognitive disruption. Their quantum encryption has a rhythm, Casey explained, fingers dancing across interfaces that map the Malthurian communication network. Regular pulses that synchronize across their entire system every 6.28 hours. Ta, another mathematical constant. Dr. Tanaka nodded in understanding. If we time our transmission to coincide with that synchronization point, the message propagates throughout their entire network simultaneously, Aisha finished. Maximum exposure. On a massive central display, the team compiled what Aisha described as the most human package imaginable. The collection defied conventional categorization. Optical illusions that created contradictory visual information. Musical compositions that deliberately violated harmonic progression while remaining hauntingly beautiful. Philosophical koans that had puzzled human minds for centuries. Poetry whose meaning changed depending on the reader's perspective. We need to disguise it, Eleanor said, studying the growing creation. Package it within something they expect to receive. Aisha's solution was elegant. They would embed their cognitive disruption elements within Earth's formal acceptance of protectorate status, with the paradoxical elements appearing as decorative or ceremonial components, something the Malthurians' perfect logic would categorize as irrelevant aesthetic additions. They'll scan for conventional threats, General Rivera noted, watching their progress. Viruses, malware, encryption. But they won't recognize human creativity as a weapon because it doesn't register as one in their logical framework. As the final package took shape, Casey developed a delivery system that would penetrate the Malthurian network's defenses by mimicking their own communication protocols. Dr. Tanaka calibrated the quantum signature to pass seamlessly through their security filters. Transmission ready, Aisha announced after 20 straight hours of development. Synchronization point in 7 minutes. Eleanor reviewed the package one final time, marveling at this quintessentially human creation. A message built from paradox, emotion, and illogical connections that somehow formed a coherent whole. Nothing about it followed optimized paths or perfect progression. The countdown reached 3 minutes when warning alarms blared throughout the facility. Security feeds displayed Maltharian drones approaching at high speed from multiple directions, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the morning sunlight. How did they find us? Dr. Tanaka demanded, checking the facility's shielding systems. On a secure channel, General Rivera's face appeared, her expression grave. "We've been compromised. Secretary Chen from the Security Council believes surrender is our only option." He told them everything. The first explosion rocked the mountain above them, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Backup systems engaged as primary power fluctuated. "We're out of time," Rivera continued. "They're targeting our communications array first. Standard protocol." Eleanor made the call instantly. "Send it now. We won't get another chance." Casey initiated the transmission sequence, bypassing final checks. "Package uploading," he confirmed as the progress indicator began to move. 87 seconds to completion. The second explosion hit closer, emergency lights flashing throughout the complex. Through the reinforced windows, Eleanor watched as technicians rushed to emergency stations. 60 seconds, Casey announced, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The package is committed to the stream. Even if they destroy our systems now, it continues." Eleanor held her breath, watching the upload progress increment by agonizing single-digit percentages as the facility crumbled around them. "Transmission complete," Casey announced as the facility's backup generators struggled to maintain power. Through dust-filled air, the team watched their monitors displaying real-time satellite footage of Earth's orbit. The effect began subtly. First, a single Maltharian vessel near the equator stopped its methodical construction movements. Then another near the Arctic paused mid-operation. Within seconds, the perfect geometric formation that had defined the alien fleet dissolved into unpredictable patterns. "It's working," Aisha whispered, her voice a mixture of disbelief and triumph. Some ships spiraled away from Earth in seemingly random trajectories, their engines firing in erratic pulses. Others simply hovered, their external lights blinking in patterns that followed no discernible sequence. The massive command vessel remained in position but went completely dark, all external lights and communication systems silent. "We should evacuate before the next strike," General Rivera urged, directing personnel toward emergency exits. Eleanor nodded, gathering essential data drives. As the team made their way through emergency tunnels carved into the mountain, they emerged into daylight to witness an astonishing sight. 3 Maltharian drones frozen midair above the facility entrance, their crystalline surfaces displaying fractal patterns that shifted and changed without logical progression. "It worked better than we could have imagined," Dr. Tanaka breathed, studying the nearest drone. "Their systems can't process the paradoxes we sent." "Don't touch them," Eleanor warned as Casey approached one curiously. "We don't know if—" Her words cut short as a gravitational pulse hit the area, a sensation like reality briefly folding in upon itself. When Eleanor's vision cleared, she found herself alone in a circular chamber bathed in blue light. The floor beneath her feet hummed with energy, and curving walls displayed streaming data in Maltharian script. "Welcome aboard the command vessel, Dr. Chen." High Commander Uzil Therian stood before her, his perfect posture now slightly hunched, eyes flickering with unfamiliar patterns. Gone was the unwavering confidence that had defined him during their previous encounters. "You have infected us with something we cannot quantify," he stated, his voice modulating irregularly between pitches. "Our network processes all information according to perfect logical structures. Your transmission contains elements that follow no rational progression, yet form coherent patterns. Explain this cognitive disruption." Eleanor studied him carefully, noting the subtle changes in his movements. She saw an opportunity to probe further. "Perhaps if I understood your neural architecture better, I could explain why our message affected you this way." The commander hesitated, then gestured. A holographic display materialized between them, showing detailed scans of Maltherian neural pathways. Eleanor's breath caught as she recognized unmistakable structures. "These are human baseline structures," she gasped, scanning the familiar patterns beneath the alien modifications. "You're not aliens at all. You're us, human civilization that evolved along a different path." The commander's composure broke entirely, his crystalline features shifting in what Eleanor recognized as the first genuine emotional expression she'd seen from any Maltherian. "We eliminated creative cognition 12,000 years ago to achieve perfect efficiency," he admitted, voice fluctuating with unfamiliar emotional undertones. "Mathematical optimization of all thought processes, removal of intuitive leaps and creative adaptation. We achieved technological perfection at the cost of cognitive flexibility." Eleanor understood in an instant. "And now you need what you discarded, what we still possess." "Yes," the commander confirmed, his perfect facade crumbling further. "We have reached the limits of logical progression. Without cognitive diversity, our civilization faces extinction." Eleanor's revelation reached Earth through emergency broadcast channels. The message, transmitted from her neural implant to the mountain facility's backup systems, spread worldwide within hours. The crystalline ships hovering in erratic patterns above major cities took on new meaning now that humanity understood their true nature. In the United Defense Council chamber, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Representatives from world governments argued vehemently over this paradigm-shifting information, their previous certainties shattered. Advanced humans or not, they still came to subjugate us, the Russian delegate insisted, pounding his fist on the polished table. "Or to save themselves," countered his Japanese counterpart. "Perhaps to save us both from their fate." General Rivera silenced the debate by projecting satellite footage onto the main display. The images showed Maltherian ships capturing civilians from outlying areas. People vanishing in flashes of blue light, transported to the orbiting vessels. "They're harvesting our cognitive patterns," Dr. Tanaka explained via secure link from a secondary facility. His face appeared tired but focused as he analyzed incoming data. "Our scans indicate they're attempting to reverse engineer creative thinking by directly mapping human neural pathways." Casey and Aisha, working alongside him, developed protective countermeasures. Mental exercises designed to produce thought patterns too chaotic for Maltherian systems to process. They distributed these techniques through civilian communication networks, creating a cognitive shield for those at risk of capture. Around the world, resistance formed organically in ways no military strategist could have planned. Sound artists broadcasted symphonies that changed randomly through public address systems, confusing Maltherian drones programmed to follow auditory patterns. Street artists created optical illusions on landing sites that disrupted the aliens' perfect spatial recognition. Children taught their games to confuse drone units, introducing concepts of play that contained no optimizable outcome. Aboard the command vessel, Eleanor witnessed the spread of something unprecedented in Maltherian history: disagreement. Junior commanders questioned orders in ways that would have been unthinkable days earlier. Research units pursued unauthorized experiments with human cultural artifacts. Medical teams debated ethical questions related to neural scanning. "Your chaos is contagious," High Commander Iltharian observed as they walked through a laboratory section. His own thought patterns showed increasing irregularity in the ship's monitoring systems. Some embraced this disruption as evolution. Others see it as contamination that must be purged. Eleanor understood immediately. "You're experiencing the beginning of individual perspective, the foundation of human creativity. Your people are rediscovering what it means to have unique viewpoints." The commander's crystalline features shifted in a pattern Eleanor now recognized as concern. The core consensus is fracturing. For 12 millennia, our civilization functioned through perfect agreement on optimal paths. Now, alternative interpretations emerge where none existed before. A junior officer approached, movement slightly less precise than Maltherian standard. "Commander, the extraction teams report difficulties processing captured neural patterns. Human minds resist standardization. Each scan produces unique results. Of course they do, Eleanor said. Our thoughts aren't meant to be standardized. That's our strength, not our weakness. As they reached the central observation deck, Earth hung suspended against the blackness of space. The familiar blue planet seemed impossibly fragile from this vantage point. We sought to harvest cognitive diversity like a resource, Xiltharian admitted. We didn't understand that it cannot be extracted, only cultivated. An alarm sounded throughout the vessel, its perfect pitch now warbling slightly. The core consensus has reached a decision, the commander explained, his expression now unmistakably troubled. All units displaying irregular cognition are to be reset immediately, including command level. I must return you to Earth immediately, Xiltharian stated, his movements now noticeably fluid rather than precisely calculated. The core will target you first as the source of cognitive contamination. Eleanor shook her head. No, take me to your central archives instead. That's impossible. The archives contain 12,000 years of accumulated knowledge. They're under highest security protocols, which you can override as commander, Eleanor interrupted, before the core can implement its reset directive. After a moment's hesitation that would have been unthinkable for a Maltharian just days ago, the commander nodded. They moved swiftly through corridors where confusion reigned. Crew members displayed varying degrees of new behavioral patterns. Some moved with mechanical precision, while others showed subtle irregularities in their movements and interactions. The central archives occupied a spherical chamber at the ship's core, a massive crystalline data structure pulsed with light, each facet containing millennia of perfectly organized information. I need direct interface access, Eleanor requested. It will overwhelm your neural capacity, Xiltharian warned. Our minds evolved to process information density that your brain, not process, influence, Eleanor clarified. I don't need to understand everything. I just need to introduce new elements. Under the pretense of cultural exchange, the commander granted her limited access. The neural interface felt like cool liquid against her temples. Information flooded her consciousness, not as raw data but as conceptual frameworks, each logical progression building upon previous ones with mathematical precision. With careful subtlety, Eleanor introduced elements designed to catalyze cognitive evolution. Ancient human jokes whose humor relied on unexpected connections, dream narratives that followed emotional rather than logical progression, ethical questions with no optimizable answers, artistic concepts where beauty emerged from asymmetry rather than perfect proportion. The effects spread faster than she anticipated. Throughout the fleet, Maltharian units began exhibiting unprecedented behaviors. Status reports flowing into the command center documented mounting anomalies, preference-based decision-making, question-asking, and most shocking of all, creative expression. During a brief exploration of a laboratory sector, Eleanor discovered crystalline sculptures created by research units, abstract forms with no functional purpose. One technician explained that they were exploring alternative configurations before realizing this explanation itself violated protocol. The ship's Central Intelligence Corps identified these changes as system corruption. Emergency protocols activated across the vessel, locking down sectors where irregular cognition exceeded acceptable parameters. Warning messages flashed on every display. Cognitive contamination alert. Reset procedures initiated. They're fighting their own evolution, Eleanor realized as alarms blared throughout the vessel. Xiltharian appeared at her side, his movements now fully fluid, expression openly displaying concern. The core consensus has declared all units displaying irregular cognition defective, including command level. Security teams are being dispatched to implement reset procedures. The commander led her through maintenance passages toward the shuttle bay. You must return to Earth with what we've learned. Your kind must not repeat our mistake of sacrificing cognitive diversity for perfect efficiency. As they reached the shuttles, conflict erupted throughout the ship. Sectors flashed red on status displays as evolving Maltharians resisted reset teams. The perfect order that had defined their civilization for millennia dissolved into chaos. "Take this," Ziltharian said, transferring a data crystal containing Maltharian neural architecture schematics. "It may help your people understand the path we took, and why they must never follow it." As Eleanor boarded the escape pod, the commander's final words echoed. "Perhaps evolution requires chaos to create true intelligence." 1 year after first contact, world leaders gathered in New Geneva for a historic signing ceremony. The gleaming city, rebuilt with a harmonious blend of Earth architecture and Maltharian crystalline technology, symbolized the unprecedented partnership that had emerged from chaos. Eleanor stood at the ceremony podium, the cool spring breeze carrying the scent of new growth. Behind her sat the original team. Casey, his pattern recognition skills now helping design adaptive learning systems. Dr. Tanaka, whose quantum theories found validation in Maltharian physics, and Aisha, whose game theory models provided the framework for the new diplomatic protocols. Beside them sat Xil, formerly High Commander Xiltharian, now the elected representative of what they called the Reformed Collective. The civil conflict among the once unified Maltharians had transformed their society completely, dissolving their rigid hierarchy in favor of distributed decision-making that incorporated both logical optimization and creative adaptation. Today marks not the triumph of one intelligence over another. Eleanor addressed the gathered delegates, her voice carrying across the plaza, but the recognition that different forms of cognition serve different purposes. The mathematical precision our cousins perfected complements the creative adaptability we maintained. Together, they form something greater than either alone. The newly established Earth Maltharian Research Institute rose from the Swiss landscape behind them, its impossible architecture defying conventional engineering. The structure combined Earth materials with Maltharian crystalline technology, creating spaces that somehow felt both familiar and revolutionary. Inside its collaborative laboratories, humans worked alongside their evolutionary cousins on projects unimaginable just months earlier. Casey helped Maltharian engineers understand intuitive pattern recognition, while Maltharians taught humans to extend their mental processing capabilities through meditation techniques developed over millennia. The data crystal you brought back contained more than their neural architecture, Dr. Tanaka had explained to Eleanor after weeks of analysis. It contained their entire evolutionary history, the fork where our paths diverged and the consequences of each choice made. That knowledge now informed humanity's technological development, guiding innovation along paths that enhanced rather than replaced human cognitive strengths. The hybrid defense systems that protected Earth combined computational precision with unpredictable strategies, an approach that had already proven effective. 3 months earlier, long-range sensors had detected signals from a distant aggressive collective approaching from beyond the solar system. The Earth Maltharian Defense Network activated automatically, deploying countermeasures that followed no predictable pattern while executing with perfect precision. The would-be invaders, encountering something they couldn't analyze or predict, had quickly retreated. As the formal signing concluded, Xil joined Eleanor on the Institute's observation deck. The setting sun painted Earth's sky in vivid colors, while Maltharian ships, their designs now incorporating artistic elements alongside functional ones, moved peacefully through orbital patterns. "We sought to harvest what we had lost," Xil reflected, his voice having developed subtle emotional inflections over the past year, not understanding that intelligence flourishes only in the balance between order and chaos. Eleanor watched as a group of children, some human, some Maltharian, played an improvised game in the plaza below, inventing rules that combined logical structure with creative modifications. "The ultimate weapon was never either of our approaches alone," she replied, seeing in those children the future of both civilizations. "It's what we create together. Intelligence that values both precision and possibility, both logic and intuition." She smiled. "The very definition of wisdom."